Oh yeah, I'm 20 years HIV positive. I've been, I'm terminally ill. So
Wow.
it's, I don't look it because I attribute a lot. I've gotten off all Stemetil for nausea. I've gotten off Restorol, 7.5 milligrams for sleep, oxycodone, 80 milligrams, 3 times a day. They had me gobsmacked on all kinds of pills. And now I don't mind sitting here smoking this in front of you. I'm not trying to be rude. It's just I do this or I take my medications, edibles, because I'm dealing with the inflammation, because the meds that I take to stay alive for 20 years, they've done damage internally into my spine and other areas where the inflammation and pain is always there. But not taking those other pills gives me my quality of life. And this is what this fight's all about. It's not just about our gardens. It's about reasonable access to our medicine. And what does the Constitutional set those reasonable limits at? A grassroots movement that started in 2012 to when the medical marijuana purposes regulations were proposed, we knew that there was going to be some serious issues around it and potentially constitutional issues. And at which time I then retained John Conroy and opened a trust fund and started building a collective of patients, starting with national activists and building out our networks. And we're now about 4,000 members strong, officially on record. We got about 3,000, over 2,600 in Facebook right now that are in there, dealing with just the issues at hand, which is this trial and how to fund it, because it's $250,000. From day one, from when it was founded, when I modeled it, at first it was to stay federal and to use a Queen's Counsel attorney, which was John Conroy, and to make sure that we went straight to the federal bench of Canada and represented all patients. And in a class action, that would have been possible if you could actually sue for class action for damages, but you can't over a policy change. But the thing is how did we represent the class? Under constitutional law, we're all equal before and under the Constitution in this country. So under constitutional law, Mr. Conroy worded it very well in our statement of claim, exactly how what applies to one applies to all in this matter, those that are legal in this country to either cultivate. I mean, if you're legal to possess, you're legal to potentially cultivate until now. Well, there was two sets of regulations. They're running together right now. There's the MMAR and the MMPR. The MMPR is going to, they're in what's known as force right now. They're not in full force. Now, they would have been full force on April Fool's Day, when they took all our permits away. However, this federal injunction that came in essence, preserves certain aspects of that. That being said, on April 1st, the MMAR will be gone and the MMPR will come into full force. And if we win in our injunction, what you'll see is that the MMPR will be given a year or whatever by the judge to implement personal cultivation into the medical or the MMPR scheme that they have now, which is currently doesn't provide for those provisions and would have people only buy from a mail order system and a larger system that patients simply have proven statistically not to want to do in the past and present. You still are able to apply under the MMPR, which you can now. I mean, right now you can still get a license. You just cannot get a license to produce. There's going to be no new licenses, no even changing of addresses. I mean, what's been grandfathered in essence is the paperwork that was already in place at the day that we made the motion for injunction. The judge, or when the judge handed his decision down on that motion, basically on that day, that piece of paper then became, you don't need to renew it. You can't change addresses. But it's essentially the restraining order that's in place by the federal government. And it allows you to continue to store what your license says you can store at your house, but you can only carry on you in public. It's funny because the judge did add one small change that said you can't carry in public more than 150 grams. But it's just like the address change. We believe there's some things that, of course, didn't go well with the injunction. The address change is something we're concerned about. 18 months, 2 years could be a long time. People could move. It's an issue that it certainly sticks out, but People can still order. I mean, this is the thing. Come April 1st, they can order from a licensed producer, but that's the sole proprietor, and they can't come by from a medical patient because we can't provide for anybody. So it's kind of this. Unfortunately, everybody in Canada, the 450 or the 500,000 that they, in their own documents, the Crown's documents, provided, the 500,000 medical patients in this country that they're going to have over the next 10 years registered. Well, none of them until this case is settled are going to be able to cultivate their own medicine. However, once we win this, which I believe we're going to, because we've already discredited the reasoning for overhauling the program, which was fire, mold, and organized crime, I truly believe it'll be a constitutional right to the reasonable limits. The thing we're challenging is the constitutional right to reasonable access, and those reasonable limits set on that access. In balancing out what's good for the public and good for the patient. So it's very important for people to understand that for us, we believe that extension of the right to reasonable access includes the right to cultivate what you're going to personally eat, as long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else. And that's what we're basically demonstrating through the court of law, because politicians weren't listening. Right now, I know they're looking at court dates still. Unfortunately, the judge did ask for it to be expedited, but it's looking like maybe 6-8 months. I'm not sure until we get a secure date. That's for just a start, and then of course it's a huge trial. I mean, you're talking about a constitutional challenge
and thousands of people involved.
Yeah, I mean, 36,000 growers and 38,000 with permits. The only difference is the judge said until the Constitution of Canada has stated whether what you're doing is going to cause irreparable harm to patients or is even justified, I'm not going to take that right away from these patients. And that's what comes next, is a constitutional challenge. And that's what will secure, under the Constitution, we're all equal before and under the Constitution. So that will secure personal gardens in this country. And no decision can be overturned that's been decided under the Constitution without our Premier, the House, and the Senate. It'll never happen. That's why it's such a big case, and it's historic in nature. This is a question for Canada to answer and the Attorney General of Canada, because they're the ones who had the huge oversight. I believe the statistics show they didn't make the program out to really be a success. Then they argued in court. We didn't know it was going to be explosive. And they're talking about only 36,000 people. But yet in their own documents, they say in 2001, Stats Canada estimated there was 500,000 medical users in Canada. So you didn't know? But your own statistics show. So this is the whole thing where I love court and I love law, because stats and facts matter, and there's no political spins, there's no media hype, and there's only the law and justice. And in Canada, we pride ourselves on our healthcare system, and we do not throw the sick, the dying, and the disabled under the bus for monetary gain. It's not going to happen on our watch. There's too many Canadians here that still believe in the fundamental rights to ethics. Our Charter of Rights and Freedoms we defend vividly, and I'm one of those patriots. If it wasn't marijuana, if it was anything else, if I felt it was going to cause this much irreparable harm, it wouldn't matter who it is. I would still defend that right, because it's not a just policy that's going to hurt that many people. Not when it's a harmless plant that's never hurt. In fact, the plant shouldn't even be under federal control. It should be free to the people. It's never killed anybody by their own admission. I mean, I'm immunocompromised for 20 years. I've not gotten sick off growing my own meds or. The injunction does not cover these other patients. They are being forced to conform. Some patients were led to believe their licenses were done, so they didn't renew. They didn't know. They didn't have the legal advice we did. They weren't part of the group. They weren't part of that little small people, and that's not fair. And then there's a 150-gram limit. There's the no extractions. Those are issues that are still going to face Canadians for 2 years, that we could go to jail for having our medicine on us. Is it likely that the prosecution is going to go forward with charges? Likely not. But nobody wants to wake up to a rubber sandwich in the morning simply for having the medicine. It's just wrong, and it's not the Canadian way. And we need to knock down all the hypocrisy around cannabis and put it back into pharmacopoeia, so doctors can prescribe it if they want to call it a medicine, or free it to the people where it really belongs, and let us use it as we wish, as a holistic herb, and use it as a plant medicine. That's what it is. It's a plant-based medicine that doesn't hurt anybody. And until we recognize that and educate the world on that, and we're doing that country by country. Uruguay, good on them. U.S. even. Good on Colorado. You know, look at no crime stats. The only problem they're having in Colorado, no crime, no fire, no mold. The only problem they're having, they don't got enough supply.